Hello, this is John Ramsey, and this is my big comeback. I'm thrilled today because we've got our state attorney, Larry Basford, with us today, and he's going to share a little bit about the law and how he came to the place he is in and what he's doing for our community. Let me start off with this, Larry. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small community. It's called Dalewood. It's located about 10 miles north of Marianna, up in Jackson County. Population when I was growing up was probably around 150.
150.
Maybe between 100 and 150.
Yeah. So kind of rural area.
Absolutely.
Mostly farming, a lot of peanut farmers up there and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, there's great people. I love all those folks up there. And now with the 14th Judicial Circuit, all that area is in your district, isn't it?
Yes, sir. The 14th Circuit encompasses 6 counties: Bay, Gulf, Calhoun, Jackson, Washington, and Holmes County.
Wow, it's a big area. Big area. So do you have offices in all those other counties, or does everyone just come here?
We have permanent offices in each county, staffed by prosecutors.
But they all have their own operation, or they all operate through your office here in Bay County?
I supervise all of those offices. The main office is here in Bay County. Our financial office, though, is in Jackson County. It's been up there for the last 30 plus years.
Wow. Well, you must spend a lot of time on the road.
Sometimes I try to get by and visit those individuals that are running my offices, my county chiefs, not on a weekly basis because there's so much going on down here in Panama City.
How about staffing? All total, the whole district, how many staff are we looking at?
We have about 98 full-time employees. We have some part-timers also, OPS workers. And out of that, about 29 attorneys, 7 investigators, 6 or 7 victim advocates, 4 people working in IT and support staff, and then we have legal assistants and receptionists. Also.
Wow, that's a lot to manage, a lot to keep up with.
And although the attorneys seem to get most of the attention, it is truly a team effort because, as you know, when people walk in, a lot of times they've been victimized, and we try to make them feel welcome and also let them know that we're there to help.
You know, I've seen technology change so much with the court system, closed circuit TV, stuff like that. Is that really helped your being able to manage things?
It has, and that really
Zoom, like y'all use that?
That really came into a play during COVID.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's really helped, especially when we're doing trials now. In fact, we're getting ready to do some trials, and we're able to bring in witnesses from out of state, sometimes allow them to appear via Zoom. And but sometimes that has delayed things when you get these attorneys from out of town, South Florida, Central Florida. They want to appear by Zoom. They sometimes don't have as much contact with their clients as the local attorneys does. And that delays the process somewhat.
I imagine so. So tell me, how did you get into law? Where did you study, and what drew you there?
Well, it's not like I always wanted to be a lawyer. When I was growing up, that's when we were going to outer space, and I had dreams of being a pilot and then maybe one day being an astronaut, and that sort of changed into listening to some of my uncle's directions. I had an uncle that was a probation officer and one was a judge, and they suggested that I study the law, and I respected them, and that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
You asked about where I went to school. I started off, I was an athlete. I went to George Wallace up in Dothan, played some baseball up there, and then there was a coach that was starting to be very famous, came to FSU. I transferred over there and tried to play football for Coach Bowden. Started majoring in criminology, and from there I interned and got to meet some really good trial attorneys. You might not know these, but the name's Larry Simpson. He was the guy that ultimately prosecuted Ted Bundy.
Really?
And so I got to know him, Willie Meggs, and then as an intern investigator. And then after I was in law school, I was a legal intern and had some really good supervisors, Neil Wade, Rick Combs, and that's how I sort of moved into being a career prosecutor, I guess.
A lot of important mentors and all in your life.
Very good trial lawyers, good men, excellent lawyers. No matter what they had have done, they would have been successful wherever they were. Yes, sir.
Well, and I find that talking to several young attorneys and all that, there's a lot of them that spend some time at the state attorney's office and kind of get their feet wet and get a little training and learn a lot of how it really is, different than a textbook.
Right. It's excellent training grounds
Yeah.
because you learn how to deal with people. You learn how to evaluate cases. To be a good trial lawyer, the preparation, the hard work that's necessary. In the not-so-distant future, the average stay at the state attorney's office was about 3 years statewide. Oh, I guess you would say almost nationwide. People come in, get their feet wet, learn the way around the courtroom, how to try a case, and then they went on to private practice where they could make more money.
Yeah.
Career prosecutors do it not so much for the money, although the money has gotten better over the last several years, but because they look at it as a calling.
Yeah. Making a difference in the community.
Making our community safer, and making it just a better place than how we found it.
Well, and I find that a lot of, you're right, the money thing, of course, draws a lot of them away. But, it's a necessary part of the whole judicial system, even as much as serving on a jury, which, I'm like everybody else. I get the thing in the mail and your first thought is, how do I get out of it? But then, I went on and served on a jury. I've done twice now. And I remember thinking to myself, this ain't that bad. I learned a lot doing it. And I felt good. I felt good about doing it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to encourage people not to try to get out of it. Go ahead and serve your time and help out in the community. It's really a small part that we're asking people to do, and it makes a big difference.
Yes, sir. In fact, one of the instructions on the jury that the judge tells individuals is, aside from serving your country in the military, this is one of the best ways that you can serve your country, is actually serving on a jury. And to your example that you were talking about personally, there's a man, do you know D from D Seafood by any chance?
Yeah.
We had a very important murder case one time, and it came up during spring break, one of his busiest times in the season. And he was like, I really don't need to be here. I need to mind my business. And I asked him, well, if we really needed you, would you serve? And he said, yes, sir. He ended up serving, and if you told him, and he's got a place now down on Harrison Avenue also in addition to the beach, he would tell you that was a very rewarding experience and eye-opening, like you said.
It was eye-opening. I remember, and I won't identify the case, but it was a smaller case. But I remember thinking, here in the first half of it, my mind was made up. I said, person's guilty. And of course, you take a break, we come back, we heard the second part of it, and it changed my mind. It changed my mind, and I learned I need to hear both sides of the story. And I thought about with life, how many times we just hear one side and don't hear what the other part is. But if you take time to listen to the other half, it might change your mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Glenn Hess, my predecessor, that was state attorney for a number of years after he was a judge, he had a saying, a lot of times when you're evaluating a case, you should look at it and then step back and say, yeah, but what's the other side?
That's
of
right.
this? If you know, sometimes we do know. Sometimes we have the defendant's version. Oftentimes we don't, and we have to make our decision based on the facts and evidence that we have.
I was surprised that people, I saw it on Facebook, someone had posted a story about the Gideon thing and the whole, right to have an attorney and all. And I reposted it, and I had all these people say, wow, I didn't know that in Panama City. And I thought everyone in Panama City knew how famous that court case was, and it really became a part of American constitutional law. That you've got a right to an attorney.
Not only did he have a right to an attorney, as it would turn out, he got probably the best criminal defense attorney at the time in this area, Fred Turner.
Yeah, who became a judge.
Absolutely.
And for years and years, I don't know how long he served, but it was a long time.
Absolutely.
It was a long time. And it's an important part of history that I think everyone in Panama City should know, because it changed the course of law for the entire nation. Yes, a lot of things like that are important. So were you always a prosecutor? Did you ever do private practice or?
Well, I started out as a prosecutor over in St. Augustine right after I got out of school. I wanted to work here in my local area up in Mariana, and there was no openings at the time. So I went where there was an opening over in St. Augustine, and I had the benefit of practicing in front of some of the very finest judges over there. But when an opportunity came open to come back home, Jim Appleman called me up and said, come back home. Came back and interviewed on a Saturday and up at his ranch outside of Mariana, and I came back here.
That's a name everybody knows, Jim Appleman. But years and years, I don't really know how many years he was state attorney, but there was a long time. That's all you thought about when you thought about state attorney was Jim Appleman.
Yes,
he was an institution a long time.
About over 20 years now. I also was in private practice for a while, and I was in private practice with a very good couple of attorneys, John O'Brien, who was a tremendous lawyer, and Waylon Graham. They were my law partners.
Yeah. So
then I decided to come back with the state attorney's office.
And how long have you been there now, state attorney's office?
A little over 40 years total.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a long time.
Yes, sir.
You've been at it a long time. Have you, other than technology, have you seen any big changes what's changed that
absolutely. So many things. Computers and emails have made so much difference.
Yeah.
I remember when we were just getting the opportunity to do emails, and we were working on a case where a doctor was not a doctor. We were prosecuting a man up in Jackson County, and I can remember we were getting together and we would email things over to Spain because we needed to get some evidence from over there. And then finally we set up an appointment where we could talk to the guy, and we'd have to come in early in the morning so we could talk to the witness over in Spain. But emails, back when I was first starting to prosecute, when juries were getting a case, the judge was instructing the juries on a case, the judge would tell them, this is the maximum penalty on a case, but you should not consider that in your deliberations. And I was scratching my head like a lot of other people did. Well, if they shouldn't consider that, then why are we telling them in the first place?
Breaking it up.
So the law changed on that. And then you've seen changes in things like the gain time. Used to, if someone got sentenced to 50 years, you'd think they'd serve 50 years, but they'd probably serve closer to about 20 or 25. And the legislature made changes on that where they'd have to serve about 85% of that time in most cases. But the technology has probably been the biggest thing. You used to would have to have a big law library, and now we do that with legal research on the computer with Westlaw or another.
And with AI, they're talking about that changing even more. Because you think of the things like if you're studying for say a drunk driving case,
right? You
could pull up every case and you could narrow it down. It save yourself a little bit of research time.
Right.
Still got to have the human element.
And we've seen some of that pop up here locally where attorneys have used, not with the state attorney's office, and I'm not going to call any names, but there's been one or two defense attorneys that's been relying on that AI and submit memorandums to the court with case sites and everything that did not exist. So
the AI was mistaken.
Yes.
Wow.
And nobody took time to check it.
That could get you in trouble.
The defense did not take time. We checked those cases against mine, and the court checks them also. And so now, as a result of that, the judge has issued an administrative rule that whenever you make a filing like that, you have to certify whether or not you've used AI, and if so,
you have to disclose
verified the sites. Yes,
wow, sir. That's good to know. That's when you're looking at things like that change in everything, it has an effect on it. It has an effect on everything. Someone asked me would I ever use AI, in preparing a sermon, and I said, yeah. I said I've used it for research.
Okay.
I use it for research. Like when I'm looking up a verse, I'll say, show it to me in the Greek, or show me the original Hebrew in this, or something, or show it to me in another translation. But it's still the human element of what am I trying to, the AI doesn't know my heart. So there's only so far I can go with it. But with research, it can be helpful. Yeah. And I could see that especially with case law, because there's just so much, I know everybody gets the popular cases that they quote, because it's right there on the top of their head. But, if you're really going to go in deep, there's a case for everything.
Absolutely. Well, almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the other things you talk about technology that I'm very proud of is we've moved away from a case file system where it's based on documents, hard copies of documents,
Yeah.
to an electronic storage system. You know,
That helps.
our system is called STACK, System to Track and Account for Cases. And as a result, if a citizen calls up about a case up in Jackson County, for instance, and they're wanting to know why the case is taking so long, I can just pull up in my computer and with a matter of seconds and look at the history of that case, look at the notes the attorneys made and the status, the progress of the case, you know, when it's set for court and what's going on in the case. We're just in minutes, as opposed to having to find
someone drive to a storage facility, look through dozens of boxes. I can't imagine. Yeah. I remember years ago, one of the local attorneys was talking to me, asking if I had any storage available. I said, for what? He said, man, I got file boxes and didn't you have to keep them for 7 years or 10 years?
Yeah, depending on if it's a misdemeanor or a felony. And then after that,
one case can have a truckload of boxes.
Exactly. Now, what we do, we still have a storage facility for some of our more serious cases. For instance, the murder cases and the huge, and even now the cases involving children where children have been sexually abused and someone gets a life sentence. So we still keep hard copies of that, because who knows what may happen in 15 or 20 years. I'm not going to be working there at the state attorney's office, and probably most of our employees won't be there in that long. And so we might need that if something's happened to them.
You know, I've talked to a few of the judges, and one current judge and a couple of retired judges, and I've asked them, I said, how do you feel about mandatory sentences? And it's about a 50-50. I mean, some of them like them, some of them don't. Right. You know, the best argument against it I heard was from one of our current judges, and he said, I don't like it because, he said, sometimes it ties my hands where I feel like I understand the case in a different way, and I didn't want to impose the mandatory sentence, but I had to. Right. What do you feel about it?
They can be good in some situations, and sometimes they can be harsh. I think the firearm mandatory minimums are very important for deterrence. The drug sentences, when you have to see as many people that have experienced one of their loved ones die as a result of drug overdose from fentanyl, cocaine, or methamphetamine, or what have you. Those are very difficult things to do, to have to sit down and talk to a family about whether or not you can proceed with a case or not. So I think those sentences are also necessary, not so much because of our judges up here in North Florida, but we've got some very liberal judges that are still on the bench down in South Florida.
South Florida is a different state.
It is.
It's the old saying of the further south you go, the further north you go. It is a different climate, different attitude down there. Yes, a lot of different things. We're going to come back in just a minute. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to connect your organization with an audience that is eager for inspiration? The My Big Comeback podcast, hosted by John R. Ramsey, shares powerful stories of resilience and redemption, featuring guests who have turned life setbacks into major comebacks. New episodes drop the 1st and 15th of every month. For those interested in being a part of this community, sponsorship opportunities are now available. To learn more, contact Meredith Cobb at meredithcobbhwc@gmail.com. Let's make a big comeback together.
I'm here with Larry Basford, our state attorney for the 14th Judicial Circuit, and we're having a great conversation. We left the conversation a minute ago talking about mandatory sentences, and one of the things that I've often read about and talked about, the United States, one of the most, or for years was the most incarcerated nation on earth. More people, more of our population per capita in prison than anyone else. And up till last year, we were number one. It just moved to El Salvador, which we may have something to do with that. Right. Or we may have something to do with them becoming number one. But, is there other alternatives? I mean, I know you got ankle bracelet, house arrest, different stuff. What's some of the other creative ways people are using, or is there no other way to do it?
Yes, there is. Let me start off. Back in 1982, the legislature came up with what they call sentencing guidelines. Okay, that was the whole purpose of that was to promote uniformity of sentences throughout the state of Florida. For instance, down in Miami, you may commit a robbery with a firearm, and you might get 2 or 3 years in prison. That was before mandatory firearm sentences. Up here in Northwest Florida, you could commit a crime like that and maybe go to prison for the rest of your life. So
Wow.
they come up with these sentencing guidelines to promote the uniformity. But in doing so, they said that the primary purposes of sentencing in Florida on these felony cases is for punishment, not rehabilitation. But along the way, the legislature has approved what you would call problem-solving courts, things like our Veterans Court, things like drug court, therapeutic justice court. So they have approved those things to help divert people who have committed nonviolent felonies, hold them accountable, help them get the treatment that they need or the help they need, whether it's a drug problem or what have you, and then get them back in society. You talked about alternatives, okay? That is a way to keep somebody from maybe going to prison that can get their life straightened out, but still hold them accountable. We also have pretrial intervention programs, a diversion court that basically a person would come in, admit what they had done was wrong, be placed on probation for a year, make restitution if they needed to make restitution to a victim. If they've got a drug problem, get the treatment that they need. And then if it's pretrial intervention, the beauty of that program is at the conclusion of successfully completing the program, the case is dismissed. It's not on the record, okay? If they don't complete the conditions or successfully complete them, then they go back and they get prosecuted, and usually they would end up being on probation because it was a nonviolent first offender anyway.
Yeah.
But in county court, we also have a number of diversion programs to help people if they made just what you would call maybe dumb or stupid mistakes, drinking on the beach, disorderly conduct, petty theft, possession of marijuana. We have diversion courts for that so that they can complete a diversion program, pay either cost or do community service work, complete the test, and then if they successfully complete that case also is dismissed.
Yeah.
This is for first offenders. One thing that we've recently started that is very important, as we all know, if you do not have a valid driver's license, it's hard to keep your job.
Yeah.
So we've started a program that we've been doing this sort of a version of this before, but we've actually started a program to help people who get the first time no valid DL or driving while license suspended or revoked. What they would do, they would come in, admit what they've done. I don't have a license, but I need to get one. They sign a waiver of speedy trial. We'll give them usually 60 days to get that driver's license. And if they do, then the case will be dismissed because we want people out there working, being
want them to be
productive.
legal.
And it is so hard if they do not have their driver's license to do that. So instead of that ticket, adding the fines and court cost onto that first ticket, sometimes it's suspended because they didn't pay their fine or traffic ticket. Helping them get their driver's license so they can be good law-abiding citizens.
Stuff like that is good. And I think the idea is to keep people out of prison if possible, because prison sometimes trains you for other things. That you don't want them to become a hardened criminal.
Right.
If you made a mistake and you're willing to make it right, I think that's a great thing. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that a lot of times people, they get caught up in the system, and you got to want to do right. If you're just wanting to do wrong, well then you're gonna get what comes with that.
Yes, sir.
But I think sometimes people get caught up in the systems, just like what you said, the missing driver's license becomes the snowball rolling down the hill. So it leads to this and that, and then all of a sudden you're wind up in prison. That's not a good thing.
Can't pay child support, can't get a job.
Yeah.
So they do other things to get money.
Do other things to get money, and it leads to one thing or another. What's the biggest misconception? Like when I think of your day, start off, wake up in the morning. What's a day look like in Larry Basford's life?
You're talking about as the state attorney,
As the state attorney.
or as a prosecutor? Okay, as the state attorney. I'll start off in the morning. I like to start off with a devotional.
Yeah.
And it
Get your
helps me
head clear,
yeah,
tuned into
and
God.
It's
That's
amazing
good.
how many times that you find that as the day goes on,
Yes.
how relevant, or sometimes you get it two or 3 days after, and you say, "Boy, I could have used that 2 days
You needed
ago."
it, yeah.
So I start off with that. I try to exercise, eat healthy. But when I get to work, I usually will have a to-do list of maybe 5 or 10 things that I want to accomplish. Now, often I only get to about number 3 on that list. Okay?
Yeah.
But it may vary from anything. Like recently, I've been working on resentencing of a death penalty case. So I've been really concentrating on that. But then the interim, I may get interrupted with things like what's going on with spring break, or a citizen calling, wanting information about a case or complaining about a case, helping our younger attorneys make a decision on a very difficult case. Maybe they just want me to rubber stamp or affirm what they've said, so that they feel better about their situation. But it could be anything from talking with a judge about a situation, an administrative matter, or a sheriff's office, or some important policy decisions that they're trying to make. Helping our attorneys, like I say, that is part of my job. I look at my job as being a player coach.
You're like the coach of your team of attorneys.
Trying to coach them up and provide them with the resources that they need so they can be successful in and out of the court.
So are you still prosecuting cases also, along with helping them with all theirs?
Yes, and although I find that a very enjoyable part of my job, the administrative duties are very demanding, of anything that may come up. And my job is to really coach and mentor and provide the encouragement and all the tools necessary for our attorneys and our staff to be successful, like I say, in and out of court, in making decisions, as well as when we go over to court to obtain justice.
Do you find you have to coach law enforcement a lot, as far as like, if there's a gray area, look, is this against the law or is it not?
Yeah. On big white collar crime cases or big drug cases, they will often come to us and get our advice on that. It's more so in the outer counties, really, than the counties here. But here, if it is going to be a very important case, like a big drug deal, where they're going to have to get wiretaps, then they have to come to us.
Complicated stuff.
But white-collar crimes, if it's going to be a really intense white-collar crime, they're going to come to us and get our feedback on what they need before they even go out and make an arrest.
With this age of television, we, of course, like the Nancy Guthrie thing with the lady that was abducted, bless her heart, and her family, we feel for them. But, the news is clamoring for information. And from the law enforcement side is you can really mess yourself up by giving them too much. And we know everybody wants to know, but by them knowing, it sabotages the case. You have to be careful with a lot of the information, don't you?
Yes. And if you'll notice, some prosecutors do things differently, obviously.
Yeah.
No lawyer is going to try the case the same way. But we have tried to establish a policy that honors our ethics, that we as prosecutors aren't supposed to discuss a case that would potentially infect the people that may ultimately serve on the jury in that case. So very seldom will you see me making comments about a case that is current.
Yeah, because it's better just keep it to yourself till everything's done, so we don't trip over it.
Now, sometimes I can understand law enforcement coming out and making a statement to put people at rest, especially if there's been, for instance, a murder and they have arrested someone that they believe committed that murder, so people will sort of feel more safe.
Put the community at ease. Yeah.
And I must say that in times past, I did not comment on a case, and I probably should have, because when I tried to explain, look, I can't comment on that case because it's a pending case, it left the opinion that there was something to hide when there was nothing to hide, other than I was just trying to comply with my ethic. But looking back on that case, I should have probably commented more and explained what was going on and why we couldn't.
I think that's a difficult call for you to make because you want to stay within the bounds of the law and also protect your prosecutors. And at the same time, you don't want the whole community panicking. That's probably a fine line to walk.
Yes, sir.
Is there, I know you can't discuss anything that's going on now, but in the past, is there a particular case that sticks with you or bothers you or maybe keeps you up at night?
I don't lose sleep over it, but I prosecuted a case out of Mariana where a young woman, Danielle Baker, was killed with her 3 children, Ahmad,
I remember
Marion, and Aaron.
Wow.
And I successfully prosecuted the man that did that. He's serving 4 life sentences. But the evidence revealed that there was someone else with him. And to this day, we don't know who that person was. After his conviction, we tried to talk with him to see if he would tell us who that person was, and he didn't. So that case, I would really like to get the other person that was there and contributed to their deaths and helped with their deaths. But if I let myself, when I drive around town, I can see where, for instance, baby boy Brown was killed by his father, or little Haley Kane was killed in Lynn Haven, and Melinda Henson was killed out close to the college. And if I let myself, I can get in a melancholy mood. Yeah. And you just have to try to compartmentalize that.
You have to shield your family from all that. You don't take it home with you. Or
I try not to. I really try not to.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. I imagine, talking with some of the other people, the judges and sheriff and different people, there's just so much of the job that is just on you. And it's like if you worked anywhere else. I mean, it'd be, you take a little construction dust home with you, right. And I think that that's pretty heavy stuff. And I imagine it affects your family somewhat, even if you try to shield them from it. They probably feel some effect from it.
And we've seen, not in our office, but our prosecutors deal with death and destruction and abuse of children. And one of the most damaging things that they have to do as felony prosecutors is prosecute these child pornography cases. Yeah. When you see those images, it's hard to unsee those images.
It'd be rough.
And there was a case down in South Florida where a prosecutor was trying one of these cases, and it went on, I think, for a week. And the weekend before he was scheduled to give a closing argument, he committed suicide. And we don't know why he did that, but as a result of that, I instituted a program in our office at the time that said, look, every year you're going to go in and talk to this psychologist. We're going to pay for it. You go in and talk to him.
I can imagine.
And some prosecutors took advantage of it. They didn't like it because every time you mandate something, you got to have a good reason. I thought there was a good reason. I just wanted to make sure people were,
Do you ever have to shield the jury from it? Is there ever a time you think it's even too much for them to see? I don't want them to see it.
Well, in those situations, we have to prove certain elements, but quite often there may be an individual charged with, hundreds or even thousands of those types of images. We may only charge 15 or 20 because the penalties are going to be enough to get them a significant amount of time in prison. So we'd only show them those images as opposed to the hundreds that perhaps we could show.
Wow, that's heavy. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Heroes Child is a nonprofit organization that is on a mission to help community heroes with the everyday cost of childcare. We know that heroes like our military personnel, first responders, and foster families need care for their children. Heroes Child awards these families scholarships that go to help pay their childcare tuition. Use the QR code on the screen to donate now or visit heroeschild.org today.
I'm here with Larry Basford. We've been talking about all kinds of things with the law and prison and helping people and doing what we can to make the community better. I want to talk to you a little bit more about Larry Basford, the person. So, Larry, when you're not in the courtroom, you're not helping your attorneys, what do? You got any hobbies? You like to fish or hunt, or what do you do?
The thing that I like to do most is just spend time with my family.
Yeah.
My children, I'm very blessed that my children live here.
Great.
Well, our children, I should say our children. We've got 6 now.
6? Wonderful.
I have 12 grandchildren.
Wonderful.
13 and 14 are on the way. And out of those, we have 8 that live here.
That's great.
So between going to the ballpark and watching them play, whether it's soccer or softball or baseball, and then the events, I like to have the family over. But I do like to hunt and fish, even play pickleball from time to time. But really, when it comes time to me doing that or spending time watching my grandchildren or being around our grandchildren, I just enjoy that.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Do you come from a big family yourself? Siblings?
Well, I had 2 brothers and a sister, so not that huge of a family.
Not that huge of a family.
But I mean, we had plenty of cousins, and we used to all get together and eat, play ball, and we lived pretty much. Most of us lived there in Jackson County.
So, what are you reading these days? What do you like to read?
The Bible.
The Bible. That's good. That's good.
The Bible.
Yeah, that's good.
I really have found out, and I took this away from Coach Bowden. I used to visit his home often, and every day he was going to read his devotional at the end of his dining table. That's where he would read his devotional.
That's good.
No matter what, he started his day that way, and that's what I remember most about him. And I have found probably 20 years of doing this, that's just a good way to start a day.
Is there any particular part that you're particularly drawn to? I mean, I'll just tell you, like my favorite book in the Bible is the book of Galatians.
Okay.
And I like the way Paul is bringing people out of the law into the Spirit. And and he tells at the beginning of the book, I'm an expert at the law. I'm the poster boy for the law. It's fascinating to me.
Well, my devotional this morning was out of 1 Timothy. And he was, giving Timothy his charge about keeping the faith and having a good conscience. But my favorite book is James.
Yes,
I think you can take, 5 chapters, I believe, of James.
A lot of truth.
And it's just condensed down to there. A faith without good works is dead. And, about not using profanity. I mean, James is my favorite.
I like it. One of my favorite scriptures, don't just tell people to be warm. Help them. Faith without works is dead. I love it. Yes, I love it. Well, I started off in the ministry, Assembly of God Church, and I found I was raised my younger years in a Baptist church, and I found that they're both really strong in the Word. Both those denominations really strong in the Word. But I found as I got older, our church is a non-denominational, and I find myself seeking more and more. I've read the Bible dozens of times already, but every once in a while I'll grab a different translation or something. I got interested a few years ago in the Message Bible, which just puts it in modern language. It's really not a translation as much as they call it an interpretation. And of course I have colleagues that say, "Oh, don't do that. Stick to one thing." I don't think it can hurt you. I mean, I want to hear it a different way, different language, just to see if there's a part of it that I'm missing. And it's a living word. So you can read the same scripture a dozen times, but I'm in a different place than I was the last time I read it. So it ministers to me different. And I think that's great.
Well, when I read my devotional, I like to read the chapter so I can hopefully understand just those 5 or 6 verses in the doing. And I put a date there.
That's good.
And sometimes I write what that devotional is about in there. And I can look back, golly, I've read this a lot, but I never really got this out of this devotional. Now, I do like the Man Minute also. Have you seen that devotional by that? That's really good for outdoorsmen.
It really triggers different things in you, and I think it's good for people to do. I think it's good for them to have some kind of intake of the Word of God every day.
Yes, sir.
So if I was going to ask Larry Basford on what's on his bucket list, think about it like this. What's something you'd like to do that you haven't done? Is there anything that would be on your list?
There are some places that I'd like to travel to.
Have you traveled much so far?
Well, when I was younger, I was working, and I traveled. I was working over in the Middle East, in Iran, in fact. And
what were you doing in Iran?
I was working on a pipeline project over there.
Wow.
See, I used to do hard work. The work that I do now it may be difficult, but I mean, I'm hard physical work.
Yeah.
But we were working on a pipeline project.
Wow.
And it was a complicated...
what years would that be in Iran?
That would have been 77 and 78 when the Shah was still on the throne. And they
Right.
were just
Were
starting
you
to
there when the
revolt.
revolution happened?
It was right before that.
Wow. Wow. You
And
wouldn't
they
have,
loved American people back then.
Yeah.
They really did.
you know, when people see those old pictures of Iran before the revolution, it was a modern society. It was really a show place for the Middle East.
And
it
that's
went-
that's what led to his downfall, is because he was trying to modernize them, and then these
Religious hardliners.
zealots came
They
in,
didn't
and
want
they
it.
didn't want that, and it
And,
reverted
and,
back.
and they've had a grip on it now for almost 50 years. I think they said there's generations of people that don't remember a free Iran, and who knows what's going to happen there. But
I learned a very important lesson over there. My dad had gotten me the job over there. He was working with us for a period of time, and then he went to a northern part of Iran. But I was complaining that I didn't have the personnel and the equipment to do what they were wanting me to do over there. And he took me over to the side and said, "Let me explain something to you, son. On a pipeline, there's no such thing as can't. It's can't hardly. Do you understand me?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Okay, make it happen."
you got to find a way.
And that has stuck with me, and I have found that was very good advice.
Wow.
If you look at things that you have tried to do in the past or whatever, or you thought you could not accomplish, and it just rings in my mind, it's not can, it's can't hardly.
Yeah.
Find a way. And I try to instill that in my children. It's called the old college try. If you don't succeed at first, just keep trying, and try it a different way.
Find a way. So where's somewhere you'd like to travel that you haven't been?
More in the United States.
Yeah.
Go back to Spain. My wife really loves Italy. We went over there on our vacation. So in Europe, but I'm not interested in going to Europe right now. I'm a little bit disappointed in Europe.
Yeah.
So probably here in the United States a lot more.
Yeah, it's a there's
And
a lot-
Alaska.
there's a lot of
I've never
countries. I've never
heard
been to
of
Alaska.
anybody that went to Alaska that didn't enjoy it. So
My parents, of course, my father was military Air Force, so they were stationed back in the 60s and 70s. They moved all the time. They don't do that much anymore, but they used to move every couple of years. And they were stationed for a while at Anchorage, Alaska. One of my brothers was born there. And they were stationed at one point in Maine. That's where I was born.
Okay.
In Limestone, Maine. One of the furthest north Air Force bases there was. It's closed now. It's no longer there. Right. But they said, as far as beautiful country, they said Maine was the most beautiful countryside that they'd seen anywhere. And they said Alaska was a close second. They said just the raw wilderness and the beauty of it is something that every American should see.
I feel that way about Yellowstone.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. I took my children out there, and I'd like to take my grandchildren out there.
Yeah.
Also.
I haven't spent any time in that Pacific Northwest. I'd like to go see a little bit more of that. I've been all over the Southwest. Before we moved to Panama City when I was 12, we lived in Albuquerque, which was, it's like you feel like you're in a different country because the landscape is so different.
And everything is sort of that same color almost.
Yeah, it's like all brown. It's all just, it looks like you're landing on the moon. It's all desert and brown rocks. But it's a different environment. So, 12 years old, moved from there to Panama City, where it's all lush green and beaches. And it was like we moved to another country, but it's all right here in America. And then I've got some relatives that all live by that Hopi and Navajo Indian reservation, which, I'm surprised at the people that don't understand that those reservations are a sovereign nation in our nation. Right. They have their own law. They have their own constitution, their own law in the middle of America. Right. And I don't think people realize that, but it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. If you had a book besides the Bible, have you read that 51 Constitutions? Have you ever read that?
No, sir.
It actually talks about the state laws and how the state laws are like mini constitutions. And it's fascinating, some of the differences of how they came to it. And I thought that was very interesting. But I read a lot of different things, but I always love the Bible. I appreciate you talking to us today. I think it's good for people to see the grandfather side of you, the part of you that I would have never known you've been to Iran. Okay. So I think that's a good thing, and I appreciate you talking with me on the podcast. Thank you for being with us today.
I came across, we may be over.
No, go ahead.
I came across a quote the other day. I was getting ready to go talk to the police department, and it really is good for, it was a class on leadership, and it had to do with, attributes of a leader. But the quote, and I even put it on my bulletin board where people check in and out. I did that Sunday when I had to get some things from the office. It's, do no wrong to make a friend or to keep one. And I thought that was really a powerful quote.
That is a powerful quote. Do no wrong to make a friend or to keep one. I think it's a good note to finish on. Thanks for being with us today.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.